The day kicked off like any other fishing trip we'd taken since high school. There we were, a bunch of mid-20s guys chasing after the elusive walleye that made the Great Lakes a fisherman's dream. It was more than just the catch, though. It was about the sun, the water, and if I'm honest, the beers that went with the territory. Drake, Ahmed, Sammy, Ben, and myself. Kacey. We'd been doing this since we could handle a rod and reel. Life was starting to get real for us, jobs piling on the pressure. But out here, we were still the kings of our small world aboard the Siren's Call. "Today's the day, I can feel it. The big one's waiting for us," Ben declared, his voice carrying over the hum of the engine and the lap of the waves. We were all grins and optimism, the cooler stocked and the lines set. Sammy was in charge of the tunes. Drake kept the jokes rolling, and Ahmed, well, he was making sure we didn't run out of bait or beer. The morning passed without much to show, just a couple of small catches and several almost had-it tails. But as the sun climbed higher, we were hit by a surprise. A fog bank rolled in, thick and sudden, obscuring the clear blue we were used to. Through the haze, a silhouette emerged, an island, dense with trees and silent as a secret. "That's new," I said, squinting against the mist. "You'd think after all these years we'd have seen it all." "We must have drifted off the grid, guys," Ahmed suggested, his eyes glued to the GPS, which now seemed as perplexed as we were. But the coordinates didn't lie. We were where we always fished, only now there was an uninvited guest on the horizon. The island called to me. Maybe it was the mystery or just the need to break the monotony of a slow fishing day. "Let's take a closer look," I proposed, and there were nods all around. A new adventure, an unexpected turn. How could we resist? Ben steered us closer, and the island grew more imposing with every yard we closed in. We anchored, hopped into the dinghy, and rowed through the murk towards the shore. Setting foot on the island felt like stepping into a different chapter of the day, one where the rules had changed. The air was cooler here, the atmosphere charged with a static of silence. We were explorers for the first time in a long while, treading through thickets and over roots, our chatter subdued as we took in the rugged beauty of this place. We didn't venture far before a sense of unease began to prickle at the back of my neck. It was a feeling I couldn't shake, a whisper in my mind that we were not alone. As the fog clung to the treetops, the island seemed to watch us, its newest visitors, with a quiet, keen interest. Our little detour was meant to be brief, just a curious indulgence before getting back to the fish. But as we'd soon find out, the island had other plans, and our story was just beginning. The stillness was eerie, the kind you'd feel before a storm. That's when the voice came, not just breaking the silence, but shattering it. "Welcome, initiates," it began, commanding and omniscient. "You are the next challengers on the Isle's trials. Prove your worth and your will to survive, and you shall be granted your heart's deepest desire. Fail and die, and you will never leave." We stood there, a mixture of fear and disbelief rooted us to the spot. Before we could even process the situation, the voice continued its chilling instructions. "Your first trial will be Crocodile River. Navigate its treacherous waters within 1 hour. Paddles are provided, sharpened for your defense, and 1 spear for the group. Slay a crocodile, and earn a power-up for your next trial. Good luck." As the last word echoed, the surroundings morphed around us, the mist parting to reveal the river mentioned by the voice. It was bordered by steep, sandy embankments where monstrous crocodiles lounged in the sun, their immense size like nothing we'd ever seen. Smaller ones skittered around them, but in this context, small was a relative term. The raft was our only means of progression, a sturdy vessel that seemed laughably inadequate for what we were about to face. I picked up the lone spear, feeling its heft, trying not to think of the use I'd have to put it to. Without a word, we boarded the raft, each of us picking up a sharpened paddle. The push into the river was met with the immediate rush of the crocodiles. They slid into the water, their massive bodies causing waves that rocked our raft precariously. Once they were submerged, the river's cloudy waters concealed their forms, rendering them invisible. They could be anywhere, could strike at any moment, and we had no way of knowing from where. Stay sharp and paddle with all you've got, I instructed, trying to mask the tension in my voice. We spread out, ready to defend from all sides. The current carried us forward, and the only sounds were the dip and pull of our paddles and the thudding of our hearts. Every shadow in the water made us jump. Every touch against the bottom of the raft made us flinch. We were in the domain of the crocodiles now, and the river was their realm. We could only hope to survive the hour and make it to whatever awaited us next on this cursed island. The river carried us swiftly, its murky waters a perfect shroud for the predators lurking below. The crocodiles were relentless. With jaws wide, they lunged at us, their teeth clashing against the sharpened paddles as we fended them off. Drake's paddle sliced through the water, connecting with a sickening thud against a crocodile's snout. But there were too many, and our efforts seemed as futile as using a bucket to empty the ocean. It happened in an instant. Sammy lost his balance. A surge from below sent him tumbling into the blood-warm water. "Man overboard!" Ben shouted, his voice laced with terror. We scrambled, reaching out as Sammy flailed wildly in the river. Ahmed grabbed his hand, pulling with all his might. We heaved Sammy back on board, but not before a crocodile's teeth found his leg. Blood billowed around us, sending a signal to the others. The water around us frothed as more crocodiles, attracted by the scent of blood, converged on our raft. The sharpened paddles were our lifeline, each stroke keeping death at bay. I wielded the spear, thrusting it towards any pair of cold reptilian eyes that dared surface too close. As we neared what we hoped was the end of this nightmare, a crocodile leaped from the water, a monstrous thing, airborne and terrifying. It happened so fast. Ahmed was there 1 second, and in the next he was gone, pulled under in a death roll by the creature. "Ahmed," Ben screamed, reaching out to where he had just been. But it was too late. Ahmed was gone, dragged down into the depths by the very challenge we had hoped to overcome together. Sammy, pale and weak from his wound, was slipping in and out of consciousness. His arm dangled precariously over the edge of the raft, an invitation to the bloodthirsty horde below. In his fading state, he was oblivious to the danger he was in. I saw the ripple in the water, the unmistakable sign of an imminent attack. The crocodile surged towards Sammy, its jaws wide open. Everything slowed down and I waited, spear poised. Just as it neared him, I drove the spear forward with all the force I could muster. The tip sank into the creature's neck, and it let out a monstrous roar, thrashing wildly before it went still. The moment the crocodile went limp, a surreal sound chimed through the air, the unmistakable noise of a video game power-up. It was so out of place, so bizarrely cheerful amid the chaos, that it took a moment to register. But there was no time to ponder the absurdity. The river's end approached, and with it a thick fog began to envelop us. The edges of reality blurred, and the next thing we knew, the raft bumped against the sandy shore. We were back on the island, the fog clearing just as suddenly as it had appeared. Sammy's wound was gone, his skin unbroken as if he had never been bitten. But the empty space where Ahmed had sat was a silent testament to our loss. He was gone, claimed by the trial we had barely survived. We were 3 now, left to wonder what the island would demand of us next. We stood on the island, catching our breath, when the voice enveloped us once again. "Well done on surviving the first trial," it resonated with a tone that was both congratulatory and ominous. "As a reward for your tenacity, you've earned a power-up, a 12-gauge shotgun with unlimited ammunition." Drake and Sammy exchanged wary glances as I picked up the shotgun, its weight grounding in a way that was both reassuring and heavy with implication. Before we could strategize, the voice continued. "Round 2. Anaconda Apocalypse. You will find yourselves in a shallow swamp filled with hungry anacondas. Survive for 1 hour. Each of you will be armed with a machete. Good luck." The voice faded, and the fog rolled in thicker than before, swallowing us whole. When it dissipated, we were knee-deep in swamp water, the dense vegetation almost suffocating. "Stay close," I said, my voice low. "Head for the shoreline." We moved cautiously, the water around us alive with the threat of coiling death. The shotgun was a constant in my grip, and at the slightest movement, I fired, the boom echoing through the trees. The swamp seemed to explode into life at the sound, the water churning as anacondas slithered rapidly toward us. Drake and Sammy hacked at the water with their machetes whenever shadows darted too close. We were a moving fortress, but the snakes were the jungle itself, coming at us from every angle. A sharp pain seared my leg as fangs sank into flesh. I cried out, firing point blank into the serpent's head. It released me, the body going limp as the familiar power-up chime sounded overhead. Limping and bleeding, I urged the others on. "Keep going!" As the shoreline came into view, we made a break for it. But in our haste, we were careless. An anaconda surged out of the water, its jaws clamping down on Ben's shoulder, dragging him back with a force that spoke of nothing but death. "Ben!" Sammy yelled, lunging to help. But there was no time. The snake was pulling Ben into its embrace. We couldn't shoot. The risk of hitting Ben was too great. Desperation took over as we hacked at the anaconda's steel-like scales with our machetes, but it was like striking stone. Blood mixed with swamp water, Ben's screams haunting the air. The anaconda wrapped around him, and in a moment that would haunt me forever, we had to make the decision to climb, to survive, to leave Ben behind. As the hour waned, the swamp became a battlefield, the base of the tree a scene of carnage as I fired again and again, each shot a prayer for it to end. Sammy and Drake clung to the branches, faces white with terror. Finally, as my ammunition seemed to be truly unlimited, the fog rolled in once more. The pain from the bite faded, the swamp disappeared, and the island returned. Ben was gone. Sammy, Drake, and I were back on the island, the ordeal over, but the loss irreparable. We stood in silence, the reality of our survival settling in as heavily as the fog had lifted. The trials were far from over, but for now, we were alive, and the island was preparing us for what was to come next. After the harrowing ordeal with the anacondas, we took a moment to catch our breaths, the dampness of the swamp still clinging to our clothes. The air was thick with the heavy scent of victory and loss. Just as we began to hope that we might have a moment's respite, the voice returned, as omnipresent as the air we breathed. "Initiates," it boomed, echoing around us, "you have shown resilience and cunning, but the island demands more. It seeks to know the depths of your determination, the strength of your desire to persevere." A pause hung heavy in the air, the kind of silence that speaks volumes, heavy with anticipation. "Trial 3, Caves of Darkness," the voice continued. "The heart of the island conceals caverns as old as time itself. Within you will find your path to ascend, but be wary. The heavens weep and their tears will seek to claim you. Escape the rising waters within 1 hour and you shall continue. Escape within 45 minutes and a power-up shall be yours. Fail, and the depths will be your final resting place." As if in response to the daunting task ahead, the flashlights we had earned as our previous trial's power-up materialized in our hands, their beams piercing the encroaching darkness. Their light was a beacon of hope, a tangible reward for our perseverance, and perhaps our only ally in the unforgiving gloom of the caves. The voice faded, and the air seemed to grow colder. The challenge set. We looked to one another, the gravity of the situation pressing down upon us. There was no time to waste. The trial was beginning, and we needed to be ready for what lay ahead in the darkness of the island's heart. With the flashlights in hand and a shared nod, we steeled ourselves for what was to come. The island was watching, waiting to judge whether we were worthy, and we could not falter now. The void embraced us as we appeared in the cave, the darkness so absolute it felt almost tangible. Only the sound of a ferocious storm somewhere far above hinted at the world beyond this subterranean prison. We could feel the dampness in the air, the cold touch of water trickling from unseen places. The flashlights flickered to life, cutting through the blackness, revealing a world of jagged shadows. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like stone icicles, some as wide as tree trunks. The cave floor was a treacherous landscape of slippery stones that threatened to send us sprawling with every step. We pressed on, the beam of our flashlights dancing across the ancient rock formations. The cave seemed alive, breathing and shifting around us. As we navigated this labyrinth, the sense of urgency was palpable. The walls closed in and the sound of rushing water grew louder, a chorus to the storm's distant rumble. A sudden crash echoed through the cavern as a stalactite dislodged from above, plummeting down where Sammy had stood just moments before. We froze, hearts in our throats, realizing how close we had come to losing him. "That was too close," Sammy breathed, his voice shaking. We couldn't afford to slow down, though. Every second in the cave was a second closer to being trapped here forever. The cave began to slope downward, and we followed the descent, each step a gamble on the slick stone. Then, abruptly, we reached a cavernous room where the water was pooling faster than we could find a way through. It was filling up rapidly, the entrances we had come through now submerged. Panic set in as we searched frantically for an exit, the water level rising steadily, threatening to engulf us. "It's a dead end," Drake shouted over the roar of the water. But it wasn't. There, beneath the churning surface, was a hole leading into complete darkness, a maw within the cave's maw. Without options, we dived, the cold water enveloping us, our flashlights revealing the narrow tunnel ahead. The passage was claustrophobic, the walls pressing close, but those beams of light from the flashlights, our most important power-up, guided us through the abyss. We swam with aching lungs and burning muscles, the urge to breathe clawing at our insides. It was a battle against our own bodies, against the pressing weight of the water. Just when my lungs screamed for air, when spots began to dance before my eyes, we emerged. We broke the surface, gasping, heaving for breath in a new chamber. We had made it, but this respite was temporary. In the chamber we found ourselves in, two paths beckoned. A long, dark tunnel winding upward and a sheer climb about 50 feet up the cave wall. It was a daunting sight, the wall pocked with holds that promised a treacherous ascent. One wrong move and it could mean a fatal fall. We didn't have to speak to make the decision. The upward tunnel might be the safer bet, but time was against us, and safety was a luxury we couldn't afford. We had to climb. Sammy went first, finding footholds and crevices with a climber's intuition. Drake followed, his movements precise, every muscle and sinew working in harmony. I watched them, memorizing their paths, learning from their close calls. Then it was my turn. The wall was unforgiving, each hold a test of strength and will. My fingers found grooves slick with moisture, my boots searched for the smallest outcrops of rock. Several times small stones gave way under my weight, sending a shower of debris into the abyss below and my heart into my throat. With every inch climbed, the sense of urgency grew. We had to beat the clock, not just for the power-up, but to survive. The storm's roar was a constant reminder of our perilous situation. Finally, with burning arms and heaving breaths, we reached the top. Drake and Sammy reached down to hoist me up the final stretch. As I clambered over the edge, relief washed over us. We had done it. Made the climb and beat the time. The familiar fog began to seep into the cave, signaling our return to the island. We braced ourselves, and when the world came back into focus, we were back at the starting point, the island's terrain unchanged by the storm that raged in the caves below. The power-up chime sounded, a jingle of triumph in this grim setting. The voice confirmed our success. "Congratulations on beating round 3. Your time has earned you a power-up. You receive 1 grenade for the next round." The cave had tested our resolve like nothing before, and as we emerged from the suffocating darkness into the light, we knew our ordeal was far from over. We were granted a brief moment of respite, a chance to let the adrenaline ebb away and to feel the solid earth beneath our feet once more. But the island had other plans, and the voice soon shattered the quiet. "Well done, initiates," it said, a hint of something new in its tone. Was it respect? "You have traversed the depths and emerged into the light, but one final trial awaits, the most primal of all." "Final trial, Island Siege," the voice declared with a gravity that sent shivers down our spines. "The island will test your mettle against its most ferocious guardians. 30 rabid chimpanzees have been released. They view you as invaders, as threats to their dominion. You must survive their onslaught for 1 full hour. Should you eliminate the threat or outlast the time, your wish will be granted." The disembodied voice granted us our accolades and then offered a choice. "Select your medieval weapons for defense," it intoned. Without hesitation, we knew our arsenal needed to maximize our distance from the threat. Crossbows for Drake and Sammy and a long spear for myself. "Good luck. You have 30 minutes to prepare your defense," the voice concluded, the formality of its tone belying the chaos it was about to unleash upon us. As the fog rolled in, thick and fast, we sprang into action. The once tranquil island had turned into a strategic battleground where every decision could mean the difference between life and death. We chose a natural choke point, a narrow passage between a dense thicket and a steep cliff face, terrain that forced any approach to come from one direction. Drake and Sammy climbed to higher ground, using the elevation for an advantage, their crossbows ready to rain down bolts on the approaching chimps. I took the front line, the spear in my hand a sturdy barrier between us and the enemy. We camouflaged our position, using the foliage to conceal traps designed to ensnare and impede any creature that dared to attack. As the final minutes of our preparation slipped away, we tested our makeshift defenses, ensuring that everything was as secure as it could be. The tension was a living thing among us, coiling tighter with each passing second. Then, out of nowhere, a trumpet blared, a sound so foreign and out of place that it momentarily froze us. It was the signal, the beginning of the end, either of the trial or of us. The chorus of agitated chimpanzees erupted from the jungle, a cacophony of fury that set the very air on edge. The animals were close, their presence an oppressive force pressing in from all sides. We looked to each other, nods exchanged, no words needed. This was it. Our planning, our speed, our courage, all of it was about to be tested. The siege was upon us, and we braced for the onslaught, determined to stand our ground and survive. The jungle erupted into chaos as the chimpanzees descended upon us, their screams mingling with the sounds of snapping branches and rustling leaves. Drake and Sammy, perched with their crossbows, let loose a volley of bolts into the oncoming wave of fur and fury. They fought valiantly, taking down chimp after chimp, but the creatures were cunning and knew the trees better than we could have anticipated. With terrifying agility, they swung down from above, launching themselves at Drake and Sammy with a speed that was paralyzing. I watched in horror as my friends were overwhelmed. The chimpanzees were on them in an instant, their strength monstrous, their teeth and nails weapons in their own right. Drake and Sammy's screams were cut short as they were torn apart, a visceral reminder that we were never in control of this trial. I stood alone, the spear my only companion in this madness. The chimps turned their attention to me, their bloodied faces contorted with rage. I fought with everything I had, my spear a blur as I thrust and parried, but they were too many, and I was tiring fast. A particularly large alpha male leapt at me, its teeth sinking into my arm. The pain was white-hot, searing through my consciousness. With the creature's weight on me, I remembered the grenade. With the last of my strength, I pulled the pin and rolled the grenade toward the onslaught of chimps. I shielded myself as best as I could, waiting for the inevitable. The explosion was deafening, a concussive force that tore through the jungle and sent bodies flying. When the world came back into focus, a high-pitched ringing filled my ears. I was surrounded by carnage, the ground littered with the aftermath of the blast. I was bleeding, wounded, but I was alive. The alpha chimp, the one that had marked me with its bite, lay injured but not yet dead, a few feet away. It glared at me with a hatred that was almost human. With my last ounce of energy, I crawled to the spear and with a primal scream drove it into the creature's eye. Its body twitched and then went still. Just then, a thick fog rolled in. The air became hot and humid as I felt my pain quickly vanishing. Suddenly, I was back on at the starting point alone. The loss of my friends was a sharp pain, but in the strange serenity that followed, a profound clarity took hold. When prompted for my wish, the words came from a place deep within, a desire that had crystallized in the crucible of the island's challenges. "I want to know all the secrets of the island," I found myself saying. "I want to stay here, to be part of its lore, to help oversee the trials. I have a newfound respect and love for the essence of this place, and I am deeply grateful for the new lease on life it has given me." The island seemed to pulse with life, responding to my declaration. Your wish to understand and be part of the island can be granted. The voice resonated, not just in the air around me, but within me as well. To manage the trials, you must be seasoned by life, graced with the wisdom that comes with years. You must live until the age of 50 and then return to this exact location. If your desire to join the island remains, it shall be so. At that time, you may also alter your wish if you choose. As the final words of the voice faded, the thick fog that had become a familiar herald of transitions began to roll in once more. But this time, as it cleared, I wasn't standing on the island. Instead, I found myself lying on the cold shores of the Great Lakes, the sound of waves gently lapping nearby. Disoriented, I tried to sit up, only to be met by strong hands gently pushing me back down. "Take it easy," a voice said. It belonged to a coast guard who was kneeling beside me, a look of concern etched on his weathered face. "We've got you. You're the only one we found from the wreck." A boat crash? The only survivor? His words didn't make sense. Flashes of the trials, the island, and the voice filled my mind. Was it all a hallucination? A dream conjured by my subconscious as I hovered between life and death? But it felt real, the pain, the loss, the adrenaline, the wish. These memories were etched into my mind, burned into my soul with a clarity that felt too profound to dismiss as mere fantasy. As I lay there, the Coast Guard's words became a distant hum as a single-minded resolve took hold. I needed to return to the island. I needed to understand what had happened, to discover whether it was a figment of my imagination or a reality that others had failed to see. In the meantime, I would seek wisdom and accumulate the experiences necessary to fulfill my pledge. I would live fully, learn deeply, and carry the memory of the island within me until the day I could return. As they loaded me into the rescue boat, my gaze remained fixed on the horizon, searching for a sign of the island that had changed my life. Whether it was a trick of the mind or a hidden truth of this world, I knew that my journey back to the island was far from over. It was a goal, a destination, a purpose that I would pursue with every fiber of my being until I stood upon its mysterious shores once more. Thank you for joining us for tonight's tale. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you have a second to like and subscribe, I promise you won't regret it. I have a few stories I've been working on for a while that I think you guys will appreciate. Until then, thanks for your time and have a great night.